The purpose of today's lab, already phrased in the form of a question, is what is the velocity of a motorized toy car? The toy cars look like this. There's a little switch on the side of them. You turn them on, and they're going to move at a constant velocity on the flat horizontal floor. You're going to measure what that velocity is. Now, how are we going to do that? Our apparatus is going to look something like this. This is an apparatus that you've never used before. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve here for this. This is your toy car, your motorized toy car. This is a piece of cardboard. The reason that we have a piece of cardboard on that toy car is because the toy car needs to be sensed by this electronic motion sensor that's going to collect the data for us. Sometimes the car isn't big enough to be detected by the electronic motion sensor, so we tape a piece of cardboard to the car to make it bigger. So we've got our toy car, and we've got our piece of cardboard that's taped to the toy car in order to make it easier for the motion sensor to detect it. This is my motion sensor. This motion sensor is connected by a wire. There's a wire that connects the motion sensor to this little device right here that we call an Airlink. The motion sensor is what collects the data, but it doesn't display it or process it in any way. It collects the data and sends it to the Airlink apparatus. And the Airlink is going to beam it wirelessly via Bluetooth to your phone. So you're going to see the data being collected real time on your phone, and then from there, you're going to save it to your Google Drive, share it with your partners in your group, and then everybody's got a copy of the data that you collected. There's no more using stopwatches. Okay, there's no more using any other device for measuring times and positions and whatever. We're going to measure, like we could literally measure in the span of a few seconds, hundreds of positions and times with this motion sensor. Got it? All right. On the right-hand side, you see a picture that is a magnified version of your motion sensor. The only reason that I've put that there is because I want you to recognize that there's a little switch there. It needs to go to the right side where there's a diagram of a cart. I don't know if you can see it on this picture right now where you are, but there's two little pictures on that motion sensor. One is a picture of a stick man. One is a picture of a little cart. You want that switch to be on the cart. It should be there already. These motion sensors have been used 3 times already today, and all 3 classes should have had the switch in that position. So it should be there. But if somebody happened to have flipped it to the wrong place, or somebody happens to have tried to just flip it to the wrong place on purpose to try to mess up the next class, it may not be there. So it's your job to check to make sure it's in the right place. Make sure the switch is on the cart. Got it? All right. There's 2 different versions of the Airlink. Remember, the Airlink is the thing that beams the data wirelessly to your phone? There's the older version, that's the blue one, and then there's the newer version, that's the white one. They work exactly the same way. The way they connect is slightly different. Okay, if you're using one of the old ones, you need to go into your Bluetooth settings on your phone and connect it, then go into the app. If you're using one of the newer ones, then all you got to do is go into the app and select it. Make sense? At that point, they both work exactly the same. But connecting it is one extra step if you're using the blue ones. It's not a hard step. It takes you about 30 seconds. That's it. But it is an extra step. If you have any questions with that or any trouble with that, you can let me know. All right. The experiment itself is very, very simple. It's going to involve just setting up your motion sensor, aiming the motion sensor properly at one of these toy cars. So here's my motion sensor, here's my toy car. I'm going to turn on my toy car. I'm going to turn on the motion sensor, and then I'm going to place my toy car down and let it run. Let it run for 2 or 3 seconds, turn off the motion sensor, collect the card, and you should, at that point, have data. Now, if something happens that your data isn't good, and you'll know it's not good because you'll be able to see a graph of it on your phone, then just do it again. Okay, maybe modify the angle of the motion sensor or whatever. That's it. You're going to take that data, and then you're going to export that data to Google Classroom, sorry, not to Google Classroom, but Google Drive, and then everybody in the group is going to have it shared with them, and then you go ahead with your processing of the data. What does the app look like? Well, once you're connected, okay, once you have everything plugged in, everything set up, you're going to click on the app, the SparkView app, and then you're going to click on this little button that says Sensor Data. Click on Sensor Data. And then there's a little Bluetooth symbol in the top left-hand corner. Click on that. It may pop up automatically with your Airlink apparatus, or it may require you to press that little Bluetooth button. Doesn't really matter. Okay, if you have to press it, you press it. If it pops up automatically, whatever. You should see either right away or after you press it, a particular Airlink with a certain number. You need to pick yours. Right now there's only one, because when I was taking the screenshots of this last night, I was only using one. But if you're using one, and you're using one, and you're using one, then 3 of them might pop up there. Make sure that you select the one that you're using. They're all numbered, so you should be able to tell which one you're using, right? So select that, and when you select that, you should see options under motion sensor, position, velocity, acceleration, ping, echo time. Position should be automatically selected, but if for some reason it's not, then make sure you select position. Okay, you don't want the other one selected, you want position selected. Then you're going to either select this one, table and graph, or just the graph. It doesn't really matter which one of those two you pick. Once you do that, you're going to see this screen. This is a data table and a graph of position versus time. There's nothing on it because you haven't collected any data yet. This is where you actually start collecting your data. You got your motion sensor, you got your card, you turn your card on, you press start right here on your app, and then you put your card down in front of the motion sensor, let it run for 2 or 3 seconds. When it's running, it's going to look like this. A red button pops up. When you're finished collecting data, press stop. Okay, then your data is collected. Now your graph isn't going to look like this. This is all over the place here. The reason that data is all over the place is because when I was doing this last night, I just literally took my hand in front of the motion sensor and did this. So your data should be, because it's constant velocity, should be close to a straight line. What you're going to find is the more time you allow this to run, the worse the data ends up being. Because at some point, the motion sensor will lose track of the car. So I would let it run for a couple of seconds. And if you're getting a good straight line, stop. Press stop. Done. You're going to find if you let it go too long, then you're going to get a straight line, and then it's going to go, whoa, way down, way up, and it's going to be all over the place. Okay, does that make sense? Now that's not the end of the world. If you get a section that is a straight line, we can deal with that, and I'll show you how to deal with that. But it's a little bit easier if you don't have a whole bunch of extraneous data that doesn't mean anything. Okay? All right, so how do you export it to Google Drive and then share it with your partners? Well, there is a button in the top right-hand corner of the app. It's a little share button. You're going to click that. Now it's going to give you some options here. You want to click Share Data. Not the page, not the lab, but Share Data. And then you're going to, if you have Google Drive installed on your phone, which I hope you do, because that's by far the easiest way to share it or to transfer it so that you can deal with it, you're going to click on Drive, and then you're going to select the folder in which you're going to save it. My suggestion for you is to create a new folder within your Google Drive. Create a new folder. Title it something like Physics Data. You're going to use this device a few times this year, and if you have a single folder where you store your data, then you're always going to know where to find it in your Google Drive, right? What I like to do for things like this is rename it, is create a folder that might be called something like 1 Physics Data. You can see some of the folders that I have here. 1 Spring 2019, 2A, 2 baseball, 2018. The reason I put numbers in front of them is because it ranks them. Basically, if I put a 1 in front of physics data, it's going to appear at or near the top, and it's just going to be easier for you to find, right? Call it whatever you want, okay? But just make sure that you save your data where you can find it. So I've created my folder. I click upload, and my data should be uploaded to that folder. Then I can open it, put it into Google Sheets, plot a graph. I'll show you how to do that later, not right now. I don't want to overwhelm you with all of this new stuff right now. That's the point too, though, where you will share it with your partners. So your data is in your Google Drive. Right-click it, share, and then share it with the email addresses of your partners. Got it? Again, the processing of it, I'll show you how to do that a little bit later on. Let's worry about collecting the data for it right now. All right, so we've collected our data. Now it's time to import our data into a Google Sheet, but there's a couple of steps that we need to do in between. Now, I had one group share the data with me. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on the Shared With Me folder to find that. I can see that Parker, it's the last thing that was shared with me right here, exportitdata.csv. What I'm going to do now is drag that into the folder that I created. Remember I told you guys to create a folder that you recognize? I created 1A SparkView data. Then it appears at the top of my list. I always know where to find it. If I go into Share It With Me and click on that and drag it, I'm going to drop it under 1A SparkView data. And now, if I click on that folder, it's there. Does that make sense? Now, listen carefully. Nobody, whether it's the person who the data was shared with or the person who collected the data and shared it, is going to work off of this document. Nobody will touch this document. What everybody is going to do now, once it's in your folder, is click it, then right-click it, and right-click on a Chromebook is 2 fingers touching. Okay, right-click or 2-finger touch, you're going to go make a copy. So everybody's going to have a file named exportitdata.csv. Everyone's going to have one called copy of exportitdata.csv. It's the copied data that you're going to work from. Why do you think I want you to do that? Why do you think I want you to use the copy data? That's right. Everything you do on the shared one is going to affect everybody, right? Everything you do on the copied one will only affect you. So now what I want to do with this is to do my analysis is open it with Google Sheets. So now I'm going to right-click copy of exportitdata.csv. If you think you might forget, just delete the exportitdata.csv. Gone. Now I don't need to worry about which one I'm working off of, right? On my copy of exportitdata.csv, let's open with, right-click, open with Google Sheets. And the Google Sheet should open up with a whole bunch of data. More data than you ever need. I'm going to show you what to do with that data. All right, on this one we have 2 runs, run 1 and run 2. We don't want to use run 1. Okay, Andrew says that it's run 2 that we want to use the data from. So I'm going to delete run 1, just completely gone. And I'm going to do that by highlighting, going up here with my cursor to the column headers, A, B, C, D, E, and highlight all of those columns. Then I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to click Delete Columns A to E. Run 1 is gone. Now, I also don't need velocity and acceleration here, columns D or E. So I'm going to highlight those 2 columns, right-click, and delete those. I don't even need this date and time here. So I'm going to click on column A, right-click it, delete 1 column, and now I'm left with 2 columns, time and position. Now I want to actually plot my graph. Now, we know that from our iPhone screen that some of this data is irrelevant. Some of this data was kind of scattered. So we want to plot a graph and then delete what data we know is irrelevant data, extraneous data. So I'm going to highlight Watch what I'm highlighting here. I'm highlighting time and position and the data. I'm not highlighting run 2. I'm just highlighting time, position, and then all of the data, all the way down to the bottom. Keeps going. There we go. See what I have highlighted there? Now I'm going to insert a chart. The chart should pop up here any minute now. That's not the chart that I want. I want what's called a scatter chart. This is a line chart. You can see it over here under chart type, line chart. I want a scatter chart. So I'm going to click on scatter chart. Now, you can see the best stretch of data looks to be between about 1 second and 3 seconds. Would you agree with that? That looks like a pretty nice straight line. So let's go back here now. You can see my axes already labeled, my title already labeled, y-axis versus x-axis. If it's not labeled for you, there is a way to do it. It's not that hard. Sometimes it labels them, sometimes it doesn't for whatever reason. I haven't figured out why. All right, so I want to delete from 0 to 1 seconds. To do that, I'm going to highlight those rows by clicking on the rows all the way from 0 to 1 second. Then I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to delete rows. Now from 0 to 1 seconds is gone. Now I want to delete after 3 seconds. So let's go over here to 242, highlight all of those rows after 3 seconds. I want to delete those rows, and I look at my graph, and there it is. That's not a perfect straight line, but it's really good. It's more than good enough for our purposes, okay? Now, I'll show you this tomorrow, because this is a lot, but I'm going to show you the last couple of things we need to do, and then just review it tomorrow. Now what I want to do is plot what I call a trend line, or a line of best fit. So to do that, I'm going to click on the graph, click on the little 3 dots up here, edit chart. Click customize, and then click series. If I scroll down under here, series, there's a box that says trend line. That gives me a nice line of best fit, a nice line that approximates the graph. I can change the thickness of that. I can change the color of that trend line if I want, right, just to make it a little bit more visible. You can tailor that any way you want. If I scroll down a little bit further, it says label. Right now it's none. You will always choose, in any lab you do this year, use equation. Now, my graph is done. I see my data, I see my trend line, I see my axes labeled, I see my title, and I see an equation up here. It says the equation is 0.4x plus negative 0.186. That 0.41, that's the slope of your graph. And you learned yesterday that the slope of your graph is the velocity. What was the purpose of this lab? What is the velocity of a toy car? What's the velocity of this toy car? 0.41 meters per second.